Sometimes you raise a concern clearly. You explain what happened. You explain how it affected you. And at first, it seems like the other person is listening. But a few moments later, something begins to feel slightly off. They respond to something you didn't actually say. They explain why they would never do what you just described. Suddenly, the conversation is no longer about the concern you raised. It's about correcting what they believe you meant. You try to explain again. But the more you clarify, the more the conversation seems to move away from your original point. You may recognize the moment when you begin explaining yourself more and more, even though you felt clear at the beginning, and you may notice something else happening in that moment. You start trying harder to be understood. This is where misunderstandings can quietly appear in a conversation. Instead of responding directly to what you said, the response shifts to a different version of the concern. Something slightly changed, something slightly exaggerated, or something that was never actually said. Now the conversation becomes about that new version instead, and you may find yourself trying to fix the misunderstanding. Many empathetic people naturally try to explain more clearly when they feel misunderstood. They slow down. They repeat themselves. They try to make sure the other person feels heard. But during this process, the original concern can slowly fade into the background. For them, this shift can become useful, because if the conversation becomes focused on the misunderstanding, the original concern may never be fully discussed. The conversation becomes about clarification instead of the issue itself. Some people who study relational behavior sometimes describe this as a narcissistic communication pattern because the misunderstanding repeatedly redirects attention away from the concern that was raised. Now, if this happens once in a stressful conversation, it may simply be a misunderstanding. That can happen between anyone. But when this happens repeatedly, some people begin to recognize a pattern. The concern is raised, a comparison appears, and the conversation slowly moves away from the original issue. In healthy conversations, misunderstandings are usually clarified quickly. Both people try to understand what the other person actually meant. The goal is to return to the concern and work through it together. But when misunderstandings appear again and again, the conversation can begin to feel confusing. You may walk away wondering how the discussion moved so far from what you originally said. Recognizing this pattern can bring clarity, because once you see the shift happening, the conversation often begins to make more sense. If this helped put words to your experience, like the video and subscribe to the channel. This channel exists to help you recognize narcissistic and manipulative patterns calmly, clearly, and without blame, so you can trust yourself again. And when a conversation ends this way, another pattern sometimes appears next. Sometimes the same person who seemed defensive a moment ago suddenly becomes very kind. In the next video, we're going to explain why their kindness appears suddenly and how that pattern can quietly shift the emotional direction of the conversation. Click here to watch.